everything that's going on in your life that stresses you out isn't actually happening.
And I think self-love to me is loving yourself enough for your love and feelings of being a good person to not be situational.
If you don't speak up, you're always going to, it starts to condition you to be quiet.
Yeah.
It starts to condition you when you feel that uncomfortable area or you feel like someone's like stepping over your boundary. It's going to remind you like, oh, I should stay quiet like last time because it just passed.
The name More Mindful Than You is a contradiction. Mindfulness isn't about competing or being more of something than anyone else. It's about searching through your soul, living from your heart, and making an effort each day to live through the truth of what is really real. The only place we can start from is now. Welcome to the 4th episode of the More Mindful Than You podcast.
So, Colton and I met. We met in Spain, and Colton's just a really cool guy. We clicked. There was like this program that took us to Barcelona before we eventually ended up in another city called Valencia. And we met that day, and it was just like an instant connection kind of thing. And I think that whenever you are meant to be friends with somebody, not even in a fake kind of way, but you both have personalities that click to a very high extent, then it's very obvious, and that's definitely how I felt with Colton. So without further ado, Colton, tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you doing right now? What are you up to?
Yeah, of course. So I'm currently in my last semester at Washington State University, getting my undergrad in international business and in Spanish, a double major. And I'm also working full time. So I'm doing 9 credits online and working 40 hours a week and just trying to get in as much personal time as I can in between.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah. Does being that busy ever like challenge you in any specific way that you would want to share?
I mean, I guess it's a challenge every day, just, knowing where to put your energy and what's most important. But currently I feel like I've got a case of what a lot of people call senioritis, and I just have no desire to do any of the schoolwork anymore. But right now I'm just pushing week by week. So that's where we're at.
And I definitely think the answer is yes. But would you consider yourself a mindful person?
I definitely think I'm a mindful person. And I only say that because everyone has their own sense of mindfulness. So you definitely couldn't say if my mindfulness is correct or if yours is better than mine, but
or if I'm more mindful
overall,
than
yes,
you.
I believe so.
Hence the title.
I mean, I do believe I am, but that's another story.
Cool. So getting kind of back into the topic of people being busy and where to put your energy into. I currently have 2 jobs, and to be fair, they're like part-time, 10 hours a week each. And they're both doing something that I'm super grateful to do. And, like, I love looking at my job and being like, I don't have to do this. I get to do this. It's like a privilege. And I think that just makes the whole experience a lot more uplifting and like invigorating. But that being said, it is difficult to balance, working, and you're working 40 hours a week and classes and all of that. So if you have a mindfulness routine or anything that you do to kind of ground yourself, share that, and then share the way that you can choose to fit that in while also being busy with all of the other things of just living normal life.
Personally, a couple years ago, I did get into hot yoga, which is a really big thing for just keeping me, centered and not thinking too much into the future, which just stresses me out and puts more on my plate than I can already handle.
Yeah.
So hot yoga is my favorite thing to do when I just have the time to get to the studio. But because a lot of mornings I get home late from work, so I sleep in a little bit, and I still need something that next day to feel a little more centered. So I also enjoy doing yoga at home. I'm a proud owner of about 4 yoga mats. So I always have them rolled out, and there's always we have a huge house here, so we have big spaces to just do yoga. That's really something that I feel really helps me remember that you need to live in the moment. But other people I know, like Katrina was talking. I know with Katrina, she really enjoys food, and something like cooking for me too, but for Katrina, I'm sure, can be a very like centering moment, a good time to just ground yourself and remember that you're doing this for your soul. Like, you make it more than just like about the nutrition, make it more to enrich yourself, no matter what you do.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think that ties into Katrina and I were talking about. She said, you know, I asked her about meditation. She said there are different ways to meditate for everyone, and I couldn't agree more. But I am interested, like, what is it about yoga that you said that it made you feel more present? If you mean that as in it makes you feel more present in the moment, or more present compared to other forms of exercise, and just kind of like elaborate on that.
Honestly, at this point, yoga is a little less of a physical exercise for me. It, especially hot yoga, after so long, it becomes second nature. It becomes something that doesn't seem to be so difficult. So for me, it's a lot more of, my mind is racing 24/7 when I'm awake, when I'm asleep. So honestly, yoga is that one place that somehow I leave everything at the door. And when I'm on my mat, it's a place that I can actually like conceptualize, this is where I am, this is what I need to focus on. And there's nothing else there. It's just you, the mat, the 105 degrees of heat in that room. And
wow.
In reality, right? But in reality, it's just it triggers your, like, everything in your nervous system, your mind, to just think that everything that's going on in your life that stresses you out isn't actually happening. Like, all that's happening is that mat and that heat and the sweat and the pain.
Definitely. I think that I find that with exercise too, it's a good way to be in the moment, because you're already, kind of suffering in a way in that moment. So putting your energy into thinking about, I don't know, like the next thing that you're worried about is a lot more difficult. And so I think that even makes people not want to exercise, because they know that it's going to happen. Or at least, definitely for me, like, I've gone into the gym before being like, this is going to be hard now that I'm like, I don't know, like worrying about like whatever. And I think the best way to kind of manage both of those things is just being like, okay, I'm here. If it's a yoga class, it's like 45 minutes or an hour, right? So then you're like, for these next 45 minutes, I am not thinking about anything. I am just doing the yoga, and just trying that as hard as possible is super grounding, Yeah. So yeah, tell us, so you mentioned your job earlier. Tell us a little bit about your job, and people will see why I'm prompting you for this, but I think it's super interesting, and we'll get into more questions, but just tell us, like, kind of debrief on what you do specifically, maybe like a bit of the politics behind it, and also, well, I'll ask you this later, but yeah, go with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can definitely talk about, my job does relate to my mindfulness and yoga as well, but I work at a recreational cannabis dispensary here in Washington State. Interesting enough, we are right on the border of Washington and Idaho, and cannabis is fully illegal in Idaho, medically, recreationally. I don't know if they're even doing any testing on it in Idaho. They're very strict about it. But what I do on a daily basis, my title is a budtender, and a lot of people like to joke it's kind of like a bartender. So but it's true. Like, a bartender will ask you, like, what's your poison? But in my case, it's the complete opposite. Instead of asking, like, what's your poison, it's like, how can we like heal you, or like, what is gonna like help benefit you today, or what do you need to feel to just be in a better place? And that's different for a lot of people. And what most people don't realize is so many different things can be accomplished through cannabis. So, like I said, my job specifically is just being knowledgeable in all the products that we carry, and all the science and all the plant knowledge that is cannabis, so that I can help people like be more mindful, to help them not necessarily be happier, but to get on the path to just like, improvement. And I love it so much. And that doesn't necessarily mean getting everyone who walks in the door super high and stoned, but there's ways that you can do that, and you can supplement cannabis products into your life without ever really feeling it on a psychoactive level, but you do feel a completely different like mental state.
Well, that kind of gets into like CBD too, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, and CBD, I'm pretty sure is legal almost everywhere in the U.S., if not everywhere, because it's not a psychoactive drug. It's something that affects. I don't know. You explain.
Right. So CBD. So let me first with cannabis. Cannabis is considered a Schedule 1 narcotic, or is it? Yeah, Schedule 1, which means there's no potential for like medical benefit or like any scientific testing. There's no reason for it. And that's the same with like heroin,
and you mean on a national
methamphetamines, on a federal level.
Okay,
yeah. So federal. So CBD, so that's THC. That's not cannabis anymore. That's just the THC molecule. That's considered Schedule 1. CBD, the non-psychoactive component in cannabis, has recently, in the last year, been changed to Schedule 3, which means that there is medical benefit, or it shows potential medical benefit. But what this means, it has been legalized in all 50 states for CBD products and testing. But the problem with that is most people are getting this CBD from hemp plants and not cannabis plants. And while they're very similar, they don't carry the same medical benefits. They don't carry the same like anti-stress and anxiety properties like cannabis CBD products do. So it's it's a growing market, but it's really important that people learn that it needs to grow in the right direction for people to actually use it to help themselves. Because hemp plants is like if I wanted to get high and I decided to smoke some basil. Yeah. Like it's not going to do anything. It's just it's not going to do anything.
Well, so that's I would think that CBD being a molecule, like chemical molecule, would be the same no matter what source. But you're saying that it's not.
Right. So it is. A good example is like you can get CBD molecules in hops, and hops are what are used to make beer. Okay. But it doesn't mean that it's going to have that medical benefit. So hemp CBD specifically does have minor anxiety, pain relief, and stress relief properties, but it's all about having a full spectrum cannabis product that makes the difference. Because to get into the real deep stuff, THC really speeds up, maximizes, and catalyzes the effects of CBD, but you only need a really small portion. So you could have a 50-to-1 ratio of CBD to THC, and you will never feel any sense of high, but you can feel completely stress-free, or you can use it to manage your pain or to help you sleep. It's just how you mix it into your life. There's so many different ways to apply it.
So, what is the biggest stereotype about cannabis that's not true? And what is the truthful side of that stereotype?
That people smoke weed, and the people who smoke weed are lazy and they don't accomplish things, and they're this so-called stoner, and all they do is smoke and party and have fun, and or essentially sit on the couch and eat chips and play video games. But that's very, very false. Like the thing is, there is a truth to that. I do love my days off where I get to sit in front of the TV and play video games with my roommates and get honestly really, really high because I have nothing else to do. But like I said, I'm finishing my degree. Like one of my coworkers.
Yeah, you're working 40 hours a week with like 9 hours of classes. Yeah. So I don't think
double major.
Anyone can say that you're lazy.
But also my coworker, he just got into pharmaceutical school, and he's one of our best workers. And another one of my coworkers just bought a brand new car, and he just got a big boy job. So even though we're all like essentially that quote unquote stoner, we work really hard, and if we didn't, we wouldn't have jobs.
What for you personally would you say is some of like the biggest benefits that you personally or people that you know or people that are customers of the shop that you work at, the dispensary, get from cannabis? Because I know that a lot of the famous arguments we get against cannabis is that, you know, I think people are starting to recognize the medical benefits, and really it's hard to find somebody now who would totally deny that it has any medical benefits whatsoever. But also at the same time, that stigma of people being quote unquote stoner and not doing anything productive due to cannabis's effects is much worse than any benefits, and they kind of see that side and don't see the benefits. And I think it's really important to more objectively show what the benefits that people really get, despite even if it is, you said you work at a recreational dispensary, it's not a medical dispensary. But why should people vouch for even recreational marijuana that's not for a strictly medical purpose? So
a quick thing about Washington State, we're a recreational dispensary, but we have many medicinal products. In Washington State, the law is that there can only be one legal medical quote unquote dispensary per county. So there is one medical dispensary here, but in all honesty, it is smaller than our shop, and it does have less products. They just do have that medical accreditation, just a approval, so they can say that they can carry medical products. With us in our recreational shop, that really just means that every product in the shop is going to contain at least a trace amount of THC. So we have CBD products that have 0.01 milligrams of THC. So, and that's just to work with the laws. But that is something that is changing, and we will carry more. We start carrying transdermal patches, which are one of my dad's favorite things to use. But you're asking me about how I use it and how I've seen it benefit people that come in. I guess I'll start with how I use it to benefit my life. I like to tell people I definitely use cannabis recreationally and medicinally. I started using cannabis when I was 19, and I moved into my first apartment out here in Pullman, and it definitely was more just for recreational reasons. And honestly, I was going through times of depression when I moved into that first apartment, and had really nasty breakup with an ex. So I was just kind of trying to mask feelings. And that was 3 years ago. So now I've learned how to really separate when I'm using it for my recreational times, to play video games, to go to the bar, to just enjoy a hike.
Which
actually, no, enjoying a hike is medicinal.
That's true. I was gonna say, I don't think it would be hard for me to understand any argument saying that legal drugs alcohol, tobacco are not used to mask feelings. And I mean, I think that you're saying that knowing that obviously maybe it wasn't the most beneficial thing for you, and that was just a product of going through a hard time, which happens to everyone, So I think that really my main focus is the benefits are so strong and help people so much that they outweigh any of the potential for, I don't know, masking feelings, just like illegal drugs or whatever. But go on with what you're saying.
But so you're saying, it has so much more benefit, but that benefit is different for everyone. My specific benefits, I would say, I'll go through my day real quick. In the morning, I really do use cannabis to help jumpstart my energy, to really start my metabolism and get my appetite going. Because if I don't, I won't eat until dinner time, and that's really unhealthy for me. It also does really help me get ready in the morning, to be honest, for yoga. It will really clear my mind for the day, because just like yoga helps center me, I use cannabis to help center me. It's a really great way for me to just wash away the anxieties or the stresses or the stuff that I already, like, I wake up thinking about what's on my plate. I wake up thinking about tomorrow and the next day. And if I do that every day, I don't want to get out of bed.
Right.
So it really just helps me function. And like, I obviously don't smoke all day because, like I said, I work 8 hours a day. So like between that time, like, I love my job so much. That is all that I need from it. And that leads into helping the other people that come in. People will come in because for the same reasons, because they need to eat, because they need to wake up. People come in because they need to sleep. There's some people that come in because they have chronic pain and they like can't move without feeling like agony.
Yeah.
So it really does like help in ways that the narcotics didn't. Like,
right. And narcotics are so addictive and can be extremely destructive.
And they can on your body physically and mentally too.
Right.
Like, it is so terrible. Like, I know, like, I have a great uncle who had an addiction problem and it went through narcotics, and it's just crazy how that happens. So, but that's another thing. There's so many studies that show people use cannabis to get off their narcotic addictions. And that's something that has been in studies to prove that cannabis isn't a gateway drug anymore, and that it can be used to like bring people back from the harder stuff. But people also come into like their pets. We carry pet CBD products, and they do it because they know that their pets have separation anxiety. They just want them to feel like calm. And that's how I feel with people who come in, the customers. Like, I want them to, like, one of my favorite and least favorite examples, I lost my grandma in July. And while I was working one day, someone came in, and there's this older woman, and she said, "I lost my mom yesterday." And I could feel exactly what she was feeling. Mm-hmm. And when I told my mom about this, she said, "Oh, so she was feeling so terrible that she had to get high so she couldn't like feel anything."
Yeah,
so she wasn't in the same state of mind. Yeah. And I said, no, she was coming there because she wants something that could help ease the pain, that could help calm the like stress, and like you can just see it on people sometimes. So like that misconception that my mom has that it's putting you in a different state of mind is so false. And it really is used to, you use it in like with your life, not to get away from your life. There's a lot to it.
Well, you know, that's what I wanted to ask you about too, because, you know, I think people who are our age kind of understand a bit more about like how necessary it is, like especially medicinally, and then like how it can be beneficial past that. But I know like a lot of especially older generations, they see it more as something that is, you know, you were describing the things that people use it for, even if it is in a recreational dispensary. So anxiety or, you know, hunger or something. And I just hear people's voices being like, well, you should find a different way. You should do that on your own. You know, you shouldn't need like a dependency.
Right.
So what would be your answer to that?
Well, like in my own life, I've had my mom say like, you should find meditation through God. You should find something else that like helps you with your stress. And the thing is, like, everyone has their own medicine. Everyone has their own way they medicate. And I hate using the word medicate because it has a bad stigma on it, that medicate in a weird way. But people eat, people watch movies, people cry, people take bubble baths.
Yeah,
and
that's
like,
true.
For some people, it gives off that same relief that like cannabis does for me. Or like there's people that come in and they just need a topical, and like that topical relief gives them the full like relief that they need for a day. Like
topical like cream?
It's just so we have topical lotions and creams, and like I said, transdermal patches are just like a thing you like stick on your body like a sticker, and it lasts for 96 hours, and like those are amazing, for sure. But you know, when many people who come in telling me they've never used cannabis before, telling me that they just were driving by and they just wanted to know, and they have so many questions, and I like educate them, but it's more like they're still nervous because of everything they've heard, and people will just walk out and not buy anything, or they won't even try the CBD products.
Right.
And they're like, okay, I'm going to go do more research on my own. But
well, I think that's so unfair. And like, there's so much propaganda that's just not true. Like, in that it makes people stupid, and that it makes people like go into like some sort of psychotic state, and that's just objectively not true. And I think that's unfair. And I think that whenever you were talking about people who medicate with everything else, with food or TV or whatever, then I just hear in my head somebody's question being like, well, nobody should medicate with anything. What would you say to that?
Life is such a crazy, messed up, difficult place that we are all trying to get a grasp on, and life is constantly throwing itself at you in different ways and for every person, that if we don't find a way to either medicate or meditate, which I think they go hand in hand, they're the same thing, then we all just get defeated. And like, medicating or meditating, in my sense, is like my armor against the world. Like, I do it so that I can talk to hundreds of people every day at work and like keep a smile on my face and care about their days and genuinely want to talk to them. Like, if I didn't smoke, if I didn't use cannabis, if I didn't go to yoga, I genuinely would not feel like I have the emotional or like mental stability to like do my job or to do so much things. And I feel like that's very similar for a lot of people. They just don't realize it. If you took away someone who is a like every night Netflix watcher, if you took that away from them, they would have to find something else.
Right.
And
they're all just different ways to kind of change how you feel,
Yeah.
Which everything is a different way to change how you feel. That's kind of, people build their interests around what makes them feel the best. Like, humans are pleasure seeking animals, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that whenever it's not past a point of hurting other people in order for yourself. But like, for example, I try and meditate every day, and that is something that I've talked about on this show before. But more than that, it just makes me feel better, so it's something that I'm gonna do. And I think that where things get tricky and political is whenever we say, okay, but this is something that's not hurting anyone else, but it's bad. And even though it makes you feel better, it's bad. And I think, I don't know, I'm such a contender for looking at things with more of a kind of scientific, like, what's the research? What are we actually talking about, instead of fear mongering and propaganda and whatever else, And I think, like the Netflix example, or just anything that you kind of do to zone out and I don't know, kind of dull and block out feelings and that kind of thing. So real quick, my thing with that is, like, with cannabis, it's not to block out feelings, it's to help better like interpret them, I guess, because on my daily basis without cannabis, my stress is like my anxiety, like, it's constant. And when I use cannabis, it doesn't get rid of it. It just allows me to like manageably realize, like, why are you being stressed? Like, it lets me understand where it's coming from. And honestly, same with cooking. When I'm cooking, and when you're in the moment with something, you're able to process better. Same with yoga. Like, if I'm having a great day already and I go to yoga, like, I'm just going to yoga for my body's benefit. But if I'm having a stressful day and I go to yoga, I'm going for my mind's benefit. And if I'm having a good day and I use cannabis, I'm doing it recreationally. But if I'm stressed and if I'm not eating and I'm like not wanting to leave my room, I do need to use it to like not to get rid of those feelings, but to say, like, you don't need to be stuck in these feelings. They're not real. Yeah.
It grounds you. It's like, you need to be in that moment. I need a constant yoga mat underneath me at all times, because that is such a place of like being like centered for me.
Right.
That would be awesome if it was everywhere, like when I'm walking around.
Well,
but it can't be.
That's so exciting. Like, I think it makes me so happy, and I just hope that more people kind of get on board, and like that's something that I would want you and like everyone to be able to experience, and like being grounded is an essential part of life. So I think if all it takes is a little bit of use of cannabis or whatever, that's fine. Like that's totally fine.
So functional human being.
Exactly. You're very functional. Okay, so we're gonna shift gears here.
Cool. Good.
So, you and I were together in Spain, as I already said in the intro. And this goes a little bit back into what Patrina said. But I'm just so interested. I that experience changed my life. I know that it changed your life. So,
yeah,
I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked her. What is the biggest thing that you learned? Or even just kind of get into the background, what you kind of went in, kind of like a timeline of how your trip there went, and then what you learned.
Yeah. So the summer before Spain actually was very, very hard with me and my family. And I was worried I wasn't going to go. So skipping that story, because that's a whole another story. When I got to Spain, like, it was pure excitement. It was like going to like a fairy tale land. And the first couple weeks were amazing. I mean, honestly, like, you were one of the best. We became friends before we even got there, which was so beneficial because, like, I was not stressed to meet you, or like, I was not stressed to meet. I was just excited.
Yeah. Me too.
But after the first couple weeks, for me personally, I don't know if I'd call it like a depression that I went to, but it was just hard for me to, like, I was living further away from everyone, and I just didn't have that motivation to want to go out every night. And there's something that was holding me down, and I don't know if that's the culture shock or where it was coming from. Like, I had all the freedom I wanted in the world. My host family was so awesome. And like, I had some really good weeks, some really good like periods of weeks there, but there were also some really bad days. And something that I really reflected on from now, looking back, is that so many people might be living in a paradise on the outside, but there's so much more going on in their lives. And I know for me, one of the reasons that it was so hard emotionally and mentally is because before I left for Spain, my grandma was given like 8 weeks left to live. So I was almost feeling really guilty.
Close. Yeah.
She's lived with me for 10 years of my life, like growing up, like in our house, and just always there, even when she didn't live with us. So I know that was a big one that was kind of just weighing on me, and I just felt like I wasn't doing enough. And even though I felt like I wasn't doing enough, I kept not doing enough, and I got stuck in that ditch of just, you suck. Like, this is where we're at. But I also did learn that there's so, like, even though like people on the outside might look like they're having a beautiful life and it could be terrible, like, there are so many other ways to look at life. And that's just from Europe, is what I learned from traveling. And like Spain, even being depressed in Spain was better than being happy here. It was my opinion. And that was just because people they were more focused on living their life there, I felt like. And based on like how they enjoyed their meals and how they focused on their families. Like, I went to family dinner every Sunday and had homemade paella. And that was one of the best things. Like, it's so awesome that like a large family can get together on every Sunday and make a beautiful meal and have a long dinner and just talk and laugh and like just express this love. I don't think it's done enough here.
Yeah. That's sad.
Yeah.
So how can we do that more here? How can we live more to a full extent and be more engaged with our lives?
I think that's just mainly about knowing what it is in life that makes you smile, that makes you happy, that is genuinely what you want to be doing, and do more of it. Like with me, it's yoga. Like the more I do it, like I get, like one of my favorite things that my yoga instructors will say is like, thank yourself for coming to yoga today. And it's not, for me, it's not thanking myself for being there for my body. It's because I just love it. Same with my job. I love going to my job. So it is enriching my life. And I feel like I can spread the love because I'm happy. And if you have a clouded conscious and you're still fighting stuff with yourself, it's harder to share the genuine energy that you want out in the world, because you need to believe it for it to actually be true.
Right. Well, like going back into your job and yoga, I think that there's this really beautiful quote that's from this really kind of like cheesy movie called Wild, based on a book written by Cheryl Strayed. It's one of my favorite books. It's this woman who's lost, and she goes on this 3-month hike, the PCT, Pacific Crest Trail, and on the west coast of the United States, and she finds herself, quote unquote. And you know, that sounds so cheesy, but the execution is so much more important, in my opinion. She executed it super beautifully. The film, I love the way that it's directed and shot. It's very like nostalgic, and you kind of just feel this woman's pain. And while she was on the hike, you know, it was right after the climax of the movie of her just being like, am I gonna be this person? You know, am I still going to be this person who F's everything up and gets into all of these unhealthy patterns and doesn't love herself? Because she had just gone on a bender doing heroin before she had started the hike. And she sat down with this woman that she found. And the woman was reminding herself, and the quote is, you have to put yourself in the way of beauty. And that is something that's stuck with me so much. And, you know, it's so true. Every time that somebody comes on here, I ask them what their routine is, because I think, you know, routine sounds like such a harsh kind of schedule like word, but it's not. Putting yourself in the way of beauty means showing up for yourself to do things that you love, to put yourself in environments for you, for example, that's yoga or a positive work environment that you can go to each day and know that you're going to love, and know that you're going to be surrounded by people who support you and don't bring you down. And, you know, that goes even further into hobbies. Like, I love playing the guitar, so I'm going to put myself in the way of beauty this way, or I'm going to go on a hike. So, you know, I think that so much of our life is just those things where it's like, well, am I going to go home because I have a homework assignment to do? Or am I going to go to this cafe that I love and enjoy? And even if I have to spend $3 on a coffee, you know, it's going to boost my mood. I think it's making those decisions for yourself and kind of getting out of a sort of lack mentality. So by that, I mean lack mentality being, well, I need to do this instead of the thing that I love. I need to, instead of go to yoga, well, obviously there are things you can't avoid that, I mean, nobody really wants to take out the trash or whatever. But, you know, choosing things, quitting a job that you don't like in order to get to a position that you love, or you know what I mean? And
yeah,
it doesn't even have to be an everyday kind of thing. Just deciding, instead of staying home all weekend, you're going to go on this really spontaneous fun trip or something. I mean, those are the things that really wake people up, you know, and make us feel grateful and make us feel loved. And so to me, whenever I think of what makes people genuinely happy, it's something that I'm only realizing now, but it's something that is so evident that you need to do these things every day, and you need to do things that you love every day, because those are the things that make you feel good and make you feel supported and make you feel less like life is a battle and more like something that is to be enjoyed and lived.
And it enriches your life so much is the thing. And if you have one good moment every day like that you can think like, oh, I went to yoga today. Ooh, I went and had spa today. Ooh, I did something I loved today. Like, you can look back on that and use that energy throughout your day. Like, one way I get through my days, when there's something like crappy happening, you just think like, this is one moment. Like, this is just, I know I'm in a bad mood, and like, sure, I can't change that immediately, but it's just one moment of my day. I'm not going to let it like ruin my whole mojo, essentially. I'm not going to let it ruin my day with my customers. It's just like, you let those small things pass. And when you learn to do that, like, you just start to live better every day. You enrich yourself.
Yeah, that's so true. So I'm just like really thinking about that. That hit home. So I'm looking back at my questions that I have for you. So one of the basic themes I wrote down is self-love. And I know that you're somebody who's really focused on doing things for self-love. And I think that's so crucial. And it's the same thing as going back to putting yourself in the way of beauty and finding those things. And I really liked how earlier you were describing that whenever you're feeling happy, you're able to spread that energy out to the world. And I think maybe it's a misconception that if you're doing, self-love, it's just for you. You're taking away time from other people. And I know that to not be true, because I know that, my cup, Oprah always says, my cup overfloweth. So it means if my cup is full, that's how I give to you, because I'm in that space of, free flow and you just feel very open and happy and you're not so constrained. So to you, what does feeling open and happy to the point of sharing it with others, what does that feel like? What does it mean? How do you get there?
Because I was unhappy for so long in my life, honestly, and I was tired of it. Honestly, from a young age, from like second grade until ninth grade, I was bullied in high school honestly, because my voice was high pitched. So bullies will be bullies, and
kids are ruthless.
Pick on people. They will pick on people's smallest things just to make them seem like, I don't know why they do it. But I hated myself for so long. I was a chubby kid. Like, I did sports my whole life, and I still was kind of big. So it was always like, until like my sophomore year of high school, when I transferred high schools, like, and I still was like, it's not that I necessarily didn't love myself, because I was probably at my best place, like physically, but I was not mentally okay. Like, I was, to be honest, I was getting drunk in my room alone at night, like, because I don't even know why. I was young and dumb, and I thought it was cool to get drunk, so I did it. And so now in my life, there's been so many things I look back on that I never want to feel again. And the best thing, like the best feeling in life, is self-love. So why wouldn't I want to practice that, is the thing. Like, there's so many people that haven't gone through necessarily like hard times that it might not be so evident, but everyone knows someone who doesn't live a perfect life or doesn't live a completely happy life. So you got to remember that. And when they improve, when they do finally change, when they do finally seem to get better, like, encourage that. Like, there's something about it that you could either learn from or that you can like help them like continue with. Like, self-love is awesome.
Yeah. And I think, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's so important. Like, everybody's gone through a hard time at one point. And I think a lot of that is, situational. For example, you were bullied, and I'm sorry, and that's not fair on a lot of levels. But, I think also, to a certain degree, self-love is about just knowing kind of your rights as a human being. Like, you have the right to love yourself and to not, you know, give away so much of yourself that in order for other people's validation, or, you know, and kind of why I'm saying that, have you seen Miss Americana, Taylor Swift's documentary? You have?
No, I've not.
Okay.
No, I have not.
So here's the thing. I've never been a huge Taylor Swift fan. Not that I don't like her by any means at all. I like her as a person. It's not necessarily my kind of music. To me, my friend got me into this movie because she was saying, you know, it's not just about Taylor Swift. It has a lot of really cool points that they bring up about what Taylor Swift has gone through. And it got into how her whole life she would play a guitar and people would cheer. And that's how she got her sense of, I'm doing things right. People like me, you know how that works. So that is like every performance, it would just kind of, she would need that boost in order to have the stronger sense of self. And it got to such a point that whenever people started on Twitter, there was a point where people had this hashtag that says, I don't know, basically something saying Taylor Swift is not a good artist. We don't like her anymore. And that crushed her because all she knew was that validation from other people. And I think self-love to me is loving yourself enough for your love and feelings of being a good person to not be situational. And that is so hard to achieve. I mean, that is something that is like Buddha level. Like, that's very difficult.
That's a higher self.
Yeah.
Oh, it's breaking up again.
That's an astral projection kind of. But can you hear me now?
Yep.
But essentially, you know, I think that it's so crucial to love yourself to the degree that every time that something quote unquote goes wrong, or you're kind of in this little scuffle with somebody, or somebody says a comment to you that maybe makes you question your worth, you don't. Or at least you can see it more objectively, see it as in, this person is maybe having a bad day. They maybe are insecure about this thing that they're talking to me about. So I think that self-love to me is having that kind of confidence and kind of just like innate knowing that you are good despite maybe somebody who doesn't say so. And yeah, so it's interesting to me. What would you say is a way that you personally use to try and get to that point of self-love?
So, I mean, honestly, that really, the way you put that about self-love, and it's really true that what I was really thinking is that it is hard to look at the bright side of things in life, or to look at the glass being half full, being optimistic about a lot of things. And one big thing is that happens through practice, I know, because being pessimistic is something that I think is just in everyone. Like, no one is born and sees a cup and thinks, oh, it's half full, because everyone in life, before you were even speaking, has taught you that it's half empty. Like, those people that say it's half full, there's not enough of them in life to raise, like, I don't believe I was raised, to, like, put it, to, like, essentially, a bad way to put it, to breed it into people that is a natural way of thought. Like,
well, going off of that, I think you said people aren't born that way, and then you said because they're taught. I would argue that you and I both mean they're born that way, and then they're taught to not see it like that.
Correct.
Because kids are so happy all of the time, you know, and then it's like we turn into adults that are pessimistic, and it's like, what happened? You know, like, that's crazy to me.
Right. Well, also something very big stretch is like something I was recently seeing. It's like, not everyone believes in like mediums and stuff, like connecting to the other side. But something about that was like, they said you have to have a completely clear conscience, and you have to be like no opinions towards anything. And there's also a lot of things that show kids have a lot more of a connection to that other side. It's because they're so pure of mind and pure of soul that they just have like that veil between, if you believe in those things, that veil there. they haven't been masked with all these beliefs. And that's something that I think we all could try to, like, I'm not saying everyone needs to be more like a kid, but everyone should try to, like, make their soul a little more pure and, like, kid-like. Well, like, don't let all of the misconceptions of the world run your days.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that going into that too, I think that there's a problem, and I think that's kind of the inherent self-love I was talking about, that, you know, kids who are essentially kind of, we're talking about it like they're kind of this untouched being, and to me that the self-love is inherent because they understand their value without needing to hear it from other people. And for me, I think that changes whenever we're raised that, you know, you're a good person whenever you do good things, and you're a bad person whenever you do bad things. And a lot of us, hardly anyone is a good person because they do good things and a bad person because they do bad things. We're all people who can choose to do something good and can choose to do something bad. And most of us are still inherently good, you know, and I don't think it's as simple as people making bad decisions because they chose to do something bad. I think people make bad decisions because they're under pressure or because of, you know,
or they don't know better.
Exactly. If you don't know, how are you gonna change? So I think just kind of, you know, it's so easy, especially for me, to get caught up in what other people think of me, and it's hard to learn how to be happy no matter what, you know, your circumstances outside, because you know, I think that I definitely rely on people telling me that I'm good in order to kind of let myself believe it. But there's a space in me that knows, you know, well, if this person and if somebody is having a bad day, they're not going to speak to you super well. And you can't let that kind of thing drag you down every single day. You know, I think, and that goes into just living with kindness. So by that, I mean, giving people the benefit of the doubt, or if somebody is kind of having a bad day or whatever, just choosing to kind of love that person anyway and saying, you know, I'm not going to let this affect me, and I still see that this person inherently is a good person, and I want to show them love even if they're doing this kind of, you know, this thing out of being in a hard time. So what would you say is one of the most important reasons to show kindness despite maybe a reaction that you're getting?
Because kind of like I said earlier, like, being able to spread that energy, like, there's something about humans, and, you know, like yawning, it's contagious, but that's true with, like, the energy you put out too and the emotions you give out. So if you can give out a little kindness every day, if you can, like, make someone's day a little brighter, like, make them laugh a little, make them smile a little, like, tell them, like, something interesting, like, enrich their lives a bit, like, you're helping them grow, which in like the butterfly effect essentially will essentially help everyone around them grow, helping the world grow. And if you're putting out that right energy, those kind actions out, you're like getting the right stuff. You're putting the right stuff into the world. It's like good karma too. What goes around comes around. And it's really, really important to not necessarily believe in that, but to take some of other people's beliefs from that and think, well, if they truly believe karma is a thing, then why don't I try to do something good? Like, one thing a day is going to make a small difference.
So what would you say is a way to show kindness and live kind of out of that kind and loving space, that heart space that, you know, where things really like flow and grow? Without having your boundaries overstepped, because that's something I struggle with and me and my friend were talking the other day, And she was describing how she met this new person, and she was in a situation that she kind of wanted them to be impressed. It was her work. But this person was being adamantly rude to her, and she had to, she was still trying to be kind and trying to keep a positive mind. And I've had situations like that. I think a lot of people have, especially in that situation of meeting somebody new in a situation where you need to have a good relationship, a roommate or work or wherever. So how do you balance being kind but not letting people overstep your boundaries to a point that, they're not respecting you, and you can't just be continually disrespected by somebody and then be like, well, I still will give you a hug or whatever. How do you kind of draw that line?
So just a funny comparison to this is my work does an awesome job at giving me the confidence for this, because our managers fully believe if someone's making you feel uncomfortable in your own workplace, they have no right to do that, and you have all the right to speak up about it. And they voice that to us on the weekly, and that's something that I kind of have been able to put into my own life. If I'm living my life and I'm doing everything right and I'm not affecting you in any negative way with what I do, you have no right to do something that makes me feel uncomfortable. You have no right to be using a language I don't like, to be acting away, to be calling me or degrading me, even if you don't think you are. I feel this happens with my family a lot. I'm a very sensitive person, and I tell my mom and my sister that they offend me sometimes. They hurt my feelings. And I only do that because I only voice that because I know every time I come home, I'm just being genuinely me. And if I'm hurt, it's genuine. I'm not trying to get attention at this point. So if you don't speak up, you're always it starts to condition you to be quiet.
Yeah.
It starts to condition you when you feel that uncomfortable area, or you feel someone's stepping over your boundary. It's going to remind you oh, I should stay quiet last time because it just passed.
Right.
But a big, a learning thing is learning how to use your voice and remind someone that you're no better of a human than I am. There's nothing that gives you more authority, to make me feel less than you. And that's how I feel right now. So you deserve to speak up. And it's really important to speak up, but it's a really hard skill.
Yeah, I think that's something that's learned over time. I think some people definitely were raised to speak up and kind of draw that line. And then for some of us, it's something more that we learn. You kind of learn what agency you have and where people, aren't allowed to cross a certain boundary. And I think that's something really important, to just be a good communicator, and not even being just a good communicator, but being able to live your life without kind of worrying about people overstepping your boundaries all the time, and kind of showing up for yourself in that way.
And something else about that is, if you're confident in who you are and in your boundaries and what you believe, nothing you say, voicing how you feel, nothing about it's wrong. And if someone tells you it is, they're dumb. That's not right. And so once you learn that you're just living 100% authentically as yourself, no matter what it is. If you're a bad girl, if you like to be a little more grungy, if you like to give off a little more of a edgy vibe, fine, live that 100%, but don't be mean.
Right.
People, that's one very small example, but if you love being a bright and happy person on the out, make sure that shows through your emotions. Just be authentic is my thing. And when you're authentic, all of your emotions are authentic too, and everything you have to say, that's the biggest thing. Just speak from the heart, speak from the true emotions. With me, I get bothered, but I'm very nitpicky about things, and I get bothered by how people work, but those aren't I know that's not something you speak out about. That's not ruining my well-being or who I am. But if someone comes into my work and they start knocking stuff over, and they start moving stuff and doing stuff that is so out of hand, I speak up, because, hey dude, you're ruining something that I've put time and energy into, and that like I am devoted to, and you don't even care. Like,
yeah,
be authentic.
Right. I think, yeah, right. I think that's just, you know, kind of the basics of showing up for yourself. So,
But
okay.
better, easier said than done is the thing.
Oh, trust me, I know.
Always.
It's hard. It's hard because once you're in that situation, you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, what if they get offended or whatever, you know? And I think that's just something that we have to learn is worth the risk. Honestly, there's no other better way to put it.
And a lot of people are kind of forced. I was watching a fashion show. There's someone who made a full collection, a whole line of work, and someone stole it from them, and they didn't say anything about it. So you have to gain that voice.
Right.
Or like for my situation, I was bullied for 8 years of my life. When I moved schools, I had to gain a voice so that I didn't fall back into that like spot I was at.
Right.
And like people in college sometimes, like they just, or in relationships even, whole thing they're forced to. And then you learn to grow that voice, and then you learn how to get better at using it. But like, it's not that you necessarily are given it.
Yeah, I think it's something that we have to work on every day, and not shy away from whenever a situation presents itself. I think that's the hard part.
And it starts with learning how to be honest with yourself, and like accepting, like I said, like when you're stressed, learn why you're stressed. Don't just sit in bed and be stressed. Like, you got to accept those things and learn how to listen to your own emotions to get a voice.
So we have one last big question, and then we're going to move on to the rapid fire round, which is my favorite part of this entire thing. So tying back into standing up for yourself and being kind, what is the best way to not get kicked off of the self-love train and to keep those habits and keep those actions and thoughts going for yourself?
If I'm being honest, I don't know if my answer is the best way, but it's what makes most sense to me. And one thing is using traumas and bad times in your life to reflect, and never really, like, there's some people that will push those hard times of their lives to the deepest, darkest corners of like their brain and their conscious, like, that they'll never think about them. But I think a lot of those, like the mistakes and the hardships you go through truly are the biggest growing points. And when you can like fully look back on them later in your life and take a lesson from it, and you can learn like what was wrong about it and what to change, like you can use it for any situation you're in, like big or small. And self-love is a big one for sure. So like I've said, I felt I didn't love myself for so long, and I use that for my biggest thing. And I think that's the only way I can. I don't know other ways too. That's my biggest motivator.
That's really powerful.
That's how I used to feel.
Yeah. I think what I would say is connecting back to who you really are and your values, and not getting caught up in kind of the drama or like our thoughts or whatever, and just going back to that space that feels, like this is really real. This is me. This is my life. This is what I want to do, and grounding yourself in that.
And like something we didn't bring up that I'm going to mention really quick, like I hadn't really used social media since July of last year.
Yeah, and you inspired me.
Oh my gosh, that's one of my favorite things I've done, because as unconscious as it is, like I followed so many like gorgeous people, and that fueled so many of my negative images on myself.
Oh yeah.
And like I know social media can be so beneficial, and it's such a resource, but I am so much happier without it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just keeping those things in check, and with anything that you're trying to do to fill your days with more self-love, I think just kind of asking yourself, is this making me happy or is it necessary? So maybe you're taking out the trash and maybe it's not making you super happy, but it's necessary. But if something's not necessary and it's not making you happy, change it.
Yes.
Okay, on that note, we're going to get into the rapid fire round.
Okay.
Do you know how a rapid fire round works?
No, I haven't got that far in the podcast yet.
No, that's totally fine.
I'm sorry.
So basically rapid fire rounds are just me asking you questions that you have a split second to think of. And the twist is this is a mindfulness podcast. So you're going to have to answer mindful, deep, philosophical questions within 1 or 2 sentences max. Okay?
1 or 2 sentences. Okay.
Okay. What is happiness?
Happiness is when you wake up in the morning and you want to get out of bed without using something else.
Is there an
drugs?
Like drugs, parentheses. Is there an absolute way to attain a happy state of mind?
No. Everyone's absolute state of mind is always changing and is dependent on where you live, what you're living in, and who you're living with, essentially.
Does life have a reason? Oh, wait, keep going.
But you can come really close, was the last part of that one before it. You can come really close to that, absolutely. Okay. Sorry.
Well, I think it's asking, this question's asking more, is there one way to attain a happy state of mind?
Oh, no.
Okay,
You had the rest
quick
of the
answer. Does life have a reason?
Yes, but that is completely dependent on every person.
How does one find purpose in life?
You try so many things until you find what really lights a fire inside you and sparks interest.
This is the last one. What can we change when we have power?
When we have power, we can change our mindset, our emotions, our physical place and being. With power, you can change how you're living your whole life and like what is coming to you in your life. Putting out the right power is everything, and it brings back the right power too.
So Colton, this has been a really awesome interview, and I just wanted to know, do you have any pondering thoughts for the week that you want to leave, that you want to say, anything that you didn't get to say, anything that if anybody didn't listen to anything but this, what would it be?
Oh, boy. If someone only skipped to this part of this podcast and I wanted them to hear something from me, it's to really go out into life with your, honestly, I know this is going to sound cheesy, but go out, eyes open, and take risks. Like my quick example is the job I'm at now. I turned down a job the day I got the phone call for this interview. So I had a job offer and I turned it down for an interview, and it made me it was the happiest decision I've made in the last 6 months. And my mom was furious and it seemed so stupid. And for a second I freaked out thinking, what was I doing? But the point is, if you put your heart into everything and you are committed to what you want and you have that mindset there, take those leaps, go for it, just do it. If you think it's possible, then it is possible. You just got to work a little bit.
Similar everyone is at the end of the day. And we
Exactly.
we think super, we've talked about things that you and I have had a plethora of deep conversations, but there's some questions that just get more out of what people believe and think. So I think that's really important.
Definitely.
And I think it's important because we all need to start feeling more connected, and connection is so important to being happy and living just a great life. And if I can help in the smallest way and you're helping every day, then that just makes it so much
We're
better.
living our lives truly. to the fullest.
We're trying. We're getting a little better each day.